Hello, welcome to another class. Happy Wednesday, September 31st, the last day of September. August. Sorry, I have the wrong month. Last day of August. Tomorrow will be the first day of September. I'm going to say good morning, but to you it might be good afternoon or good evening. Welcome. Oh, welcome, Tara. Welcome back. I'll say that and I'll type it. I see some of you have come back. Thank you for coming back. I'll be here every Monday and Wednesday to what is for me morning. Here it's 7:30 in Spokane, in America. I brought up a graphic. Sometimes it's hard to picture what a place might look like. This is probably our most iconic image of the city I'm in. This is Riverfront Park. Right now we're having a food festival at Riverfront Park here called Pig Out at the Park. Pig Out at the Park, where people eat a lot of food. Let me get the lesson up behind me. Today I'm going to talk about auxiliary verbs. On Monday I talked about subject and object pronouns for what would be pre-intermediate. And now this is going to be upper intermediate. So every Monday and Wednesday, again, what to me is morning, it's going to be upper intermediate English. It's a little more advanced, but we're going to start simple. As always, start with the simple stuff. So I'm going to start simple. I'm going to start with the auxiliary verbs, which I think are simple. Maybe you don't, but we'll see by your responses. And again, as you notice, yeah, Zach, you're very observant, Zach. The wall behind me is a different color. I was not busy painting all night. This is the power of virtual reality. That color you see does not exist. That is a non-existent color. That's kind of wild, isn't it? Welcome, Anita. Welcome back, Hazerlick. Yeah, it's good to see Yaprek. Hi. It's good to see a lot of Morad, a lot of familiar faces and some new faces here. Yeah, please tune in every Monday and Wednesday. I'm looking forward to this, and having you here and chatting back with me helps a lot. Helps wake me up in the morning because I'm just getting up. All right, let's get to it. Enough about me, enough about Spokane. Oh, there it is. Am I going to have to blow that up? Can you read that in the background? Let me know if that's too small, and I'll be happy to. I'll blow it up just a little bit. So, the easy thing about auxiliary verbs are there's only 3 of them. If you can remember 3 words, then you have this grammar down. There's be, do, and have, and that's it. That's all you need to know. Those are the only words you need to know. Now, this is a grammar point, so the grammar does change. So these words will change with the grammar. Their form will change. But if you can remember be, do, and have, you have auxiliaries down. What do we mean when we say auxiliary, though? Another word for it that some people sometimes use is helping verb. So you'll often see these with another verb. Let's take a look at some examples, and let's start with be. And I'm just going to read directly what's behind me here. And again, if you can't see, if it's too small, let me know. So let's start with be. Yeah, that's right, Rosa. Don't forget do. Do is an auxiliary, and we're going to talk about it. It's easy to forget about do because it's a little different than be and have, and we'll take a look at that. So let's start with be. Be is used with a verb ing to make a continuous form. All continuous sentences, if you use present continuous, past continuous, future continuous, you're going to need the auxiliary be, or you're going to need to use some form of it. Let's look at this first example here. And maybe when I look at these examples and read them, I can blow it up just a little bit more. There we go. So the first one, the man is educating us with his experience and wisdom. This is present continuous. How do I know it's present continuous? If you look at your auxiliary, be, that's right. Hey, Arouge, welcome. We're just starting. If you're jumping in, we're just starting with auxiliary verbs, be, do, and have. So if you look at that verb is, now that's the form for he, she, or it. And we have the man, and the man is a he, of course, so we're going to use is. If this is, that's present. It's not was, and it's not will be. It's is, which is present. So now we have the present. And then if we have a verb ing afterwards, educating, that's the continuous. So we have present continuous. The man is educating us with his experience and wisdom. And it kind of means he's doing it right now. He's doing it right now. So let's look at, I'll make a little table. Let's make a little table. Maybe I'll need 5 by 5. So our subject pronouns, I, you, and I'm going to lump he, she, and it together. And then we have they. And how about we? So for be, we have, of course, I. I'll give you a second to think about it. I am for present. You are. He, she, it, like we saw in the first example, is. They, like you, are. And we are. So those are all the present forms of be. That's right, am. Morad. So there's a little bit of time difference. So even if I put the answer down, please continue to answer. Try to answer. Anytime I ask a question, go ahead and put it in chat. I will see it. There is a small little time delay, so if I don't respond to you right away, don't worry about it. So remember these: I, you, he, she, it, they, we, and it's am, are, is, are. One thing to remember, if you use a person's name, and for this first example, I'll use my name. If I put my name, Neal, N-E-A-L, and I'm writing it, it sounds like it should be I. It sounds like it should be I. So let's look at it though. But Neal is a man's name, and so Neal actually is, and teaching auxiliary verbs right now. And so there's maybe something I should clarify. And this is for CF Teaching. Welcome, CF Teaching. Something that's interesting about auxiliary verbs is when we have this helping verb, this be verb, is, with a continuous form, teaching, we need this to make the present continuous form. Sometimes we'll see this: Neal is a teacher. And if we look at this example, notice there's no ing verb afterwards. There's no ing verb afterwards. What's tricky about auxiliary verbs, when we talk about auxiliary verbs, is be can also be a full verb. It can be a verb on its own. So in this one, I only have one verb in this second sentence. I only have one verb, is. So it is not auxiliary. It's just the main verb. In this one, if we look at it, we have is, but then we have to look at the word that comes next. If we have verb ing, be becomes auxiliary. So you have to look at the next word to see, is be functioning as an auxiliary, or is be the main verb, the only verb in this sentence? It's a little tricky. That's one thing to remember when you're looking at auxiliary verbs. Sometimes auxiliary, sometimes full verb. And I'll just put a little note here. This is auxiliary verb. And in this example, it is the full verb. Okay, let's go back and look at some more examples. Let's look at the second one. She was relying too much on her parents' money when she started university. She was relying too much on her parents' money when she started university. So we look at the form of the be, which is was, and of course that's past. And then again, we have another verb ing, which we know is continuous. So if you have that past be form and verb ing, then you have past continuous. So let's make a little chart for past forms. So again, same subject pronouns. Oh, I need another row. So I, you, and again, I'm going to lump he, she, it together, and then they. And you probably know I'm going to ask, what are the past forms of be? Can you remember the past forms of be? We saw an example where it says, she, what relying? She was relying. And again, I'm working on past here. Let me mark that. Past forms of be. Good was. How about I? If he, she, it is was, what about I? What about I? I see some answers coming. I was. Yeah, I saw. Morad, that's correct. Arouge, that's correct. I was. Good. Omar, that's correct. Blue guitar, like that name, blue guitar. Welcome, blue guitar. That's right. How about you? Anita, good. Have a little bit of my go juice here while you answer. How about you? You. Good. Good, Hazerlick. You were. Oh boy, I'm going to try to say your name. Eugenius? Eugenius? Help me with that. Can you type out a approximate pronunciation of your name? I like your icon of a heart. How about they? I was, you were, he, she, it was, they. Yeah, that's right. I think some of you are predicting where this is going. Tara, that's right. Were. And finally, we. They were good, blue guitar. They were good, heavy. Welcome, heavy. Good, Hannah. And you're seeing, I am not Canadian. I'm American. I'm in Spokane, Washington, in the northwest corner of the good old USA. It's not near Seattle. It's about 300 miles away from Seattle. It's closer to Idaho, which is the state to the east. Close. We're close to Canada. It's not too far a drive to Canada from here, actually. I'd love to go to Canada to visit. We all sound the same. You know, actually, Vancouver, Canada, and Spokane, Washington are not that far apart. We're pretty close. So you might not hear the slight change in accent, but I sure do. When I hear the Canadians speak from Vancouver, I can hear the Vancouver kind of a difference in the O. There's a difference in the O in pronunciation. Eugene, thank you. I'm going to call you Eugene from now. Welcome, Nazim. Ankit. Oh, Ankit, what was your question? Can you type your question again? I think it got pushed away. I can't see it right now. All right, let's go back. Oh, Zach can detect my American accent. In Spokane, in Washington, they say we kind of have a nasal A, like apple, flag, and I'm kind of emphasizing it. I'm kind of saying it too much, but you'll hear that sound, flag, bag, and that's kind of our, oh, thank you, CF teaching, thank you. You'll hear that kind of sound. All right, let's move on. Let's look at the next thing. And if you ask a question and I miss it, Zach's going to help me with that. But also, as people talk, it gets pushed up. Go ahead and repeat that question, and I'll try to get to all of them. So let's look at the next example. I have been saving my photos in this album, which is present perfect continuous. And that's a mouthful, right? Present perfect continuous. How do we know it's present perfect? Well, if you see this have is a good indication. How to join two different tenses in one sentence. That's tricky. Ankit, that's a good question. How do we join two different sentences or tenses in one sentence? We need a special situation. I'll show you. I'll show you one example. There are several ways to do it. I'll show you one example of joining two different tenses in one sentence. And I think I got this example from Smrt. So this example, not shinging, the shining, there it is. When I woke up this morning, the birds were singing and the sun was shining. So woke up is past, obviously. And in the next part, though, I have this continuous. We're singing, the sun was shining. So in one sentence, I have two different tenses. I have past simple, and I have past continuous, and I have another past continuous. And we can do this when we're telling a story about the past, about what happened in the past, and then we say what the situation or the environment was in the past. And when I talk about the situation or the environment, I can use past continuous. In fact, I have to. And there's several cases in English where this comes up, where it's necessary in one sentence to use another tense to establish time, what was happening at a time. And we'll cover that. We'll cover more verb tenses in the future, but you kind of need a special situation. If you have a quote unquote, I'm going to call it normal sentence, usually you just have one tense. For example, I went to the store and bought bread. Usually in a quote unquote, what I'm going to call a normal sentence, you want your verb tenses to match. So here I wrote past simple sentence, went and bought, and this is, again, normal in English, but occasionally we will have special situations where you want to use more than one tense. And again, as I teach upper intermediate, what we call 125 in the Smrt curriculum, I will cover some of these special situations where you will use more than one tense in a sentence. That's a good question. That's a great question. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm going to try another. I'm going to slaughter another name. Guandencio. Yeah, like past continuous and simple past. Mukhtar, you overslept. Welcome. It's okay. I often oversleep. I woke up early, though, to be here with you. I'm glad you're joining me now, actually. I'm glad all of you could be here. All right. Ga? Okay. Can I just call you Gao? Gao? Gaudencio? I'll keep trying. Okay, let's look at this. Let me finish this. I started this. Let me finish. I have been saving my photos in this album. Present perfect continuous. So you see this word perfect? If you have, you're going to have a perfect form. Have and then been, saving. To get and you need this been in here for the continuous. Let's look at that. Let's look at another table. And again, the pronouns. I could probably just copy from above, but okay. So let's look at I, and let's see. Let's keep it present. I have been. You. What do you think you is? He, she, it, they, we. Any guesses? Mukhtar, we're not very far. CF teaching almost lunchtime. I'm a little jealous. It's almost my breakfast time. Good, good, that's correct, good. I see you're coming up with have been, same, right? How about he, she, it? What do you think for he, she, it? And let's label this. How about he, she, it? Good. This one changes a little bit. I see you're getting these. Yeah, gal, good. Yeah, okay, you guys are smart. You guys are so smart. Oh, where'd that come from? Has been, they have been. You guys are way ahead of me. Good. Nazim, Anita, good, good. Eugene, good. Ankit, good. Yeah, you guys know this already. So this, the he, she, it, is the only one that changes. CF teaching, you ask, some verbs we can use either present or continuous form, right? Like live, work, study. So by present or continuous, I'm going to try to guess what you mean by this. So if we look at the verb live, and present form would be, for example, I live in the city. The only way, remember, and this is kind of the lesson, using that same verb, I am living in the city. The only way we can get that continuous form is to use the auxiliary be. That's really the only way to make the continuous form. All verbs work with the auxiliary be. Basically, most, I won't say all, but you'll find that the case. If you want to make a continuous form, you're going to need that be verb. That be verb is very, very important. I am living in the city. Present perfect or present perfect continuous. Gotcha. Present perfect or present perfect continuous. Let's see. Present perfect. I have been living in the city. Present perfect or present perfect. I have lived in the city. So here we have present perfect continuous, and then just present perfect. So this one we haven't really covered this yet. Present perfect. So we use auxiliary have. Notice we don't need the be anymore. Just I have lived in the city. In terms of meaning, what do they mean? Okay, I have lived. Experience. I have the experience. Yes, in the past, I have lived in the city. And let's put a city name so it sounds like I have lived in Seattle. And this is true for me. I've had that experience. I used to live in Seattle. So kind of maybe a used to meaning. I have lived in Seattle. I have that experience. I have been living in Seattle is kind of describes my current situation. I have been living in Seattle. It kind of also takes on additional meaning. We're not sure, but maybe temporary. I have been living in Seattle might give the indication that I might move somewhere else in the future. Right now, I have been living in Seattle. next year I will be living in Guam. Rosa, you're moving. I'm also currently moving. I'm moving houses. I'm still in Spokane. I'm just moving houses from one house to another. And I think today I will finally be done. Well, fingers crossed. Okay, let's continue. There are two auxiliary verbs. Oh, present perfect continuous. Two auxiliary verbs, have, been. Yeah, have and been. We have a form of the be, and then we have. So when we have present perfect continuous, the formula is kind of subject plus have plus been plus verb, and that verb will have an ing, so kind of a plus ing, plus whatever else you want to say in the sentence. But subject, have, been, verb, ing. A lot of pieces you have to put together, a lot of grammar math to actually equal something in that sentence. Let's continue though. We're still on be, we're still on the first auxiliary verb. That's crazy. Really quickly, he will be contributing by helping to make dinner. That's future continuous. And of course, anytime you see this modal will, great indication that it's future. Will and then be. There's our auxiliary be again. And notice it's the infinitive form. It's an unchanged form. I will be, you will be, he will be, she will be, it will be, they will be, we will be. I would make a chart for that, but remember it's always will be. He will be contributing. And we need that be in there. Remember, we need auxiliary be to make the continuous. But this modal will, after you use a modal, which is what's nice about modals, Gal, you've been living in California for 20 years. That's a long time. Oh, okay, so let's take a tangent. Why not? Tangents are fun. So this comes up all the time with students. This comes up all the time. I have been, and actually that's a good use of the contraction. You can say I've. You don't always have to write out have. I've been living in California since 20 years. Okay, this word since here. And this happens with 90% of the students. I see this a lot. You would actually say, I've been living in California for 20 years. So when do we use since? Since we need the actual year. So let's do some math. It's 2016 now. 20 years ago was 1996. I've been living in California since 1996. So notice with since, you're going to use the year. With for, you're going to count the years. So remember, use for plus count how many years it's been. With since, say the beginning year, say the year it started. And now we're on good length of time, Morad. That's a good way to put it. Morad, you put things very simply. I should just say for length of time, and then since 1996. Okay, let's try to get back to auxiliaries. Okay, I think you all know, you guys are smart. I saw all your answers, so I think you know future. Will. Remember for future, use that modal will. The lights are off in their house. They must be sleeping. The lights are off in their house. They must be sleeping. Okay, we call this the infinitive continuous. Again, remember, infinitive means unchanged verb. Unchanged verb. We're going to keep be as be. We're not going to do anything to be. Why? Because we have a modal. This is the awesome thing about modals. And I'll do a little more grammar math here in my notes. Anytime you have, you need a subject. Every sentence needs a subject, right? Well, not every sentence, but most sentences need subject. And you have a modal verb, like will or like must. Your next verb is going to be an infinitive form. Infinitive means, again, unchanged verb. No S at the end, no ED at the end, no ING at the end. You're not going to change form. When do we use infinitive continuous, like this example? Well, if we have a verb, ing, they must be sleeping. Remember, continuous often indicates right now. So if I write, I'm going to repeat that sentence. They must be sleeping. Means right now. They're sleeping right now. This action is not finished. They must be sleeping. Right now they must be sleeping, so I do not want to call them. Right now they must be sleeping. And we use this infinitive continuous anytime we have a modal. This modal means the be form has to be infinitive. You cannot follow a modal with any other form. It has to be verb 1, unchanged. No S, no ED, no ING. However, remember, because we have this auxiliary be, our main verb has to be ing. Must be sleeping right now. Right now. Action is unfinished. They are still sleeping. Good morning, Isabel. Oh, Noriko's back. It's okay if you're late. You know, we're not very far. We're still on our first auxiliary verb, be. So you guys actually haven't missed anything. Is future past tense in English grammar? Future past is impossible. Infinitive. Oh, okay, here's a good question too. Okay, when I say infinitive verb, I do mean unchanged verb. When I say infinitive phrase, I will mean to plus verb 1, which is of course an unchanged verb. No S, no ED, no ING. So infinitive verb, unchanged verb. Can we use has, have, been without since, for in sentences? Mohammed, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent, excellent question. Can we? Yes, conversationally, yes. Let's say person A asks, where have you been staying? So if you have a conversation like this, person A says, where have you been staying? I have been staying at my cousin's house. And here we have been staying. So when we respond to somebody, you don't need that since or that for, because they just want to know basic information. If we were to write this out, let's say we're writing a letter to somebody. We're writing a letter home to our parents. I have been staying at my cousin's house since. It would probably, that's a hard word to say, it would probably make more sense to give them all the information. So in writing, I would suggest using that since and for just to give complete information. Conversationally, when we use it, when we speak, you don't need the since or the for. Conversation allows us to give shorter pieces of information. Writing, though, it's always better, in my opinion, to give full information. Remember, when you write to somebody, and again, I'm talking about like writing a letter home, or writing an email, or even maybe just chatting or texting, that person can't always, you don't have that call and response. You don't have that back and forth with that person. So it's good to give a larger amount of information. So if you're writing and you use that present perfect continuous, help the person you're writing to understand the situation by giving them all the information. Present, when can I use present perfect? Mukhtar, you're wondering when you can use present perfect and when not. So we're back to present perfect, which is just have. So auxiliary have with present perfect. I have lived in Spokane, where I am now. I have lived in Spokane for, when did I move from Seattle? Actually, when did I move from Cheney, a different city? Probably 2013. I've lived in Spokane for 3 years. I've lived in Spokane for 3 years. When I talk about when we use present perfect, it indicates that the action, the verb, is finished. However, for me this is more correct because when I use present perfect continuous, with present perfect continuous, at least for my ears, it makes it sound like it could be temporary, a temporary situation. I have been living in Spokane for 3 years, and I will continue to live in Spokane, but the situation may change in the future. I have lived in Spokane for 3 years. Even though this indicates, this present perfect indicates that the action might be finished, when we talk about at least living in a place, it sounds more permanent. I'm going to try to spell that word correctly. Permanent indicates that the action is finished, but here with have lived, it sounds more permanent, so have lived is good. Let's look at one where the action is finished. I have read that book. Here, this is clear now. I now have the experience of reading that book. I don't need to read it again. I have read that book. I'm done with it. I still remember it. I have the experience of reading that book. So, present perfect. Is that right, what we're talking about now? Present perfect. I have read that book. Most of the time indicates action finished. I have the experience. I remember it. I don't need to do it again. I have read that book. I don't need to read that book again. Gal, you can use, you're wondering, you can use present perfect continuous when you want to say something started in the past, but it continues in the present. Yes. That's a good example too. And if you can follow all these example sentences that I'm writing, you're doing a good job. I have been reading that book for 2 weeks. Let me take this one. I'm going to cut and paste this down here. Let's look at the difference. I think reading a book is probably a good way to show the example. Okay, I have read that book, action finished. I have been reading that book for 2 weeks, action unfinished. I will continue. I want to finish the book. I'm just not done yet. I have been reading that book for 2 weeks. So, I'm going to get to the end of the book. I just haven't done it yet. I started in the past. The action is continuing now, and I will finish sometime in the future. I'm in the middle of a long action. I have been reading that book for 2 weeks. I have read that book. Action finished. And that's usually how present perfect and present perfect continuous works. Sometimes it depends on the meaning of the verb. Read is a very easy verb to understand, to comprehend. Live is a little different. It's a little more abstract. So it's probably not the best verb to use for these examples. I would say read is a good example. These are good examples. So here's another question, Mohammed. Can we use since for reason and purposes? Yes, Mohammed, we can. We can use since. Since I have been studying English so much, I have a better understanding of the language. So, since I have been studying English so much, I have a better understanding of the language. Why do I have a better understanding of the language? Since I have been studying. So it does have this meaning of because. It sounds like, yeah, because, since, because. Oh, how have you been? Yes, if you ask, this is a great question, actually. Morad, that's a great question. How have you been? Yes, we have met before, and I want to know what happened since last we spoke. How have you been? Yeah, update me. Tell me more. What's your life been like? Yes, you have met that person before. That's a great question. Rosa? Okay, Rosa, if you say I read, okay, this is obviously read, sometimes a little tricky. Of course, it could be present or it could be past. I read this book. I read this book. Action is also action finished, like I have read this book. But it doesn't say anything about, says nothing about experience or memory. If you said, I read this book, but I might read it again. I read this book, I forget it now, I might read it again. These two sentences are very close in meaning. I read this book, I have read this book. This one indicates more experience. I retain the information from this book. I don't need to read it again. I have read this book. This one, I read this book, just I remember the action of reading the book. Maybe the knowledge, maybe the information in the book I did not retain. Maybe I don't have that memory. I might read it again. I read this book, but I might have to read it again. The only thing I remember is actually going through the pages and reading the book, but a lot of the information I lost. So for me, this one means just I remember that action of reading. This one, I have read this book. I still have the information from the book in my head. And that's kind of the difference in meaning to me, although you could use both these sentences, you could use both of them in the same situation, and they would kind of mean the same thing, kind of interchangeable. But for me, the second one means I still have the information. Anirudh, you ask, we use sometimes as in sense of since, in sense. Can you help me out with that question, Anirudh? We use sometimes as in sense of since, sometimes. Let's see, other meanings of since. I have not read that book. Right, I do not have the experience. Yes, good, Rosa. I have read the book in the past, and I can still use the information in the present. So, Mukhtar, thank you. I'm trying to explain as best as I can. Anirudh, I still need help with your question. We use sometimes as. Oh, are you saying as instead of since? Like as I have, and let me know if this is actually your question. As I have been studying English, my ability to communicate with North Americans has increased. As I have been studying English, my ability to communicate with North Americans has increased. And again, as has the same meaning. Because why? Why has my ability to communicate with North Americans increased? Because or as I have been studying English. Yes, so as, since, and let's not forget that because can be used interchangeably for reason, cause and effect, as, since, because. They can be synonyms. As he is ill, he is absent. Good, Ankit. That's a great, great example. Let's see. Boy, we've gone 45 minutes in. We have 15. We haven't got very far. Let's skip ahead. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. There's Mark. Hi, Mark. Bye, Mark. Okay, do. I'm going to skip to next auxiliary, do. We can use do for questions. For example, where did you grow up? Obviously, we have the past form of do. We can use it for negative. They don't do that in my country. No, so we have auxiliary do, or the negative form, don't. And then we have main verb do. So it can be your auxiliary and your main verb. They don't do that in my country. Question, here we have a present tense question. Does he understand? Now, does he understand? And then negative past, she didn't come to school yesterday. So do is often used for question, and for negative, the thing to remember is we don't really use it for positive statements. However, there is a however. We use positive do for emphasis, what's called emphasis. If we think somebody is wrong or we want to say something very strongly, I usually don't care much about celebrities, but I do follow Brad Pitt. So other celebrities, no, but strongly, I want to emphasize very strongly, I do follow Brad Pitt. An exception. I have an exception for my dislike of celebrities. So Anirudh, yes, we can use as in place of since. And your example is, I can't meet you as I am going out tonight. We can use since. I can't meet you since I am going out tonight. Yes, as and since are interchangeable. Okay. So let's look at this one. She said, I didn't eat breakfast. But I did. I did eat breakfast. So when we think somebody has the wrong information and we want to defend ourselves, did. She said I didn't eat breakfast, but I did eat breakfast. So we use positive for what we call emphasis, to make something stronger, to say something stronger. Let's look at the last example. I thought he didn't eat meat. He does eat meat. You're wrong. He does eat meat. So strong. So that's when we use positive do. So really quick, do, use for questions. Do or do not, use for negative. And of course we have the form don't. Do, use for positive, plus sign meaning positive, for emphasis. So you can use for question, for negative, and emphasis. And we have a request, Ankit, we have a request for subordinating conjunction. That will have to be a future lesson. I don't think I can get that one in here. I don't think I can shoehorn subordinating conjunction in here. and I use the word shoehorn, slang for kind of force something in. Subordinating conjunctions and coordinating conjunctions, just conjunctions will have to wait for a later time. Muhammad writes, since he was going to be living in Canada for some time, he thought he should read something about the country. That is an awesome sentence using since. That's very, very correct. I like that sentence. Since he was going to be living in Canada for some time, he thought he should read something about the country. That is excellent. Gwen, welcome. Gwen, we are getting close to being done. And yes, Alejandro, that's right. Do is to make a strong statement. Usually we don't use it. I'll show you an example. For this, I do study English. That is not quite correct. We would not use that auxiliary do. We don't need it for positive statements. However, if somebody says something incorrectly, she says, I don't study English. But I want to correct her. I want to make sure everybody has the correct information. I do not study. I do study English. I do study English. So very, very, very strong. I don't like American football, but I do watch the Seattle Seahawks. So other teams in American football, I don't care about, but one I do. There is an exception. So we can use for exceptions or we can use for correction. So a couple uses of positive do. Usually positive do, no. Okay. Hi, Mark. Bye, Mark. Last, now we're going fast. Lightning round, because I'll give you just a tiny bit of time to do an exercise at the end. Have. And we talked about this a little bit with present perfect, past perfect. Present perfect, use have. Of course, past, use had. Future, use will have. And then we're going to use I haven't seen. We're going to use verb 3. Remember, see, saw, seen. We're going to use verb 3. Hadn't woken up. Woken. Again, verb 3. I will have cooked. Cooked. So verb 3. So for have, let's call it perfect form. For perfect form, you can use have, or past had, or future will have. And then sometimes, remember, for present perfect, we'll use the been, but this is just perfect form. Have had, will have, plus verb 3. I have, and I'll use seen again. I have seen that movie. I had watched, is that right? I had cooked dinner. I had cooked dinner the night before. Usually with past perfect, you're going to want to indicate time. I will have seen, I'll go back to the movie. I will have seen that movie 3 times. And will have seen. Will have seen, so we're looking at something that will will have passed in the future, kind of a strange tense. I will have seen that movie 3 times when I watch it, and I'm going to actually say next Friday. So I'm looking at something in the future. Okay, real quick, maybe about 5 minutes exercise. I'm going to put the exercise up, which means it's your turn. Hopefully you can see this. I'm going to blow it up a little bit. Look at the example, how they did it, and then try A through F. And I'll be back, of course. Okay, I'm back. We're running out of time. I'm sorry I had to go so fast through auxiliaries, but you were asking so many great questions, and we started talking about since, used to talk about time and used to talk about cause. So everything is awesome. Oh yeah, it's my. So everything has been great, and we got off on some tangents, but that's okay. I think you guys, it sounds like you know auxiliaries pretty well. I'm looking at some of these answers, and some of them are correct and some of them are close, so check your own answers. I'm going to go ahead and answer A through F, and then I think it'll be about time for me to go. Thanks for tuning in. They For A, I would put didn't. They didn't reject anybody's ideas last night. And you might wonder, why didn't? It can't be be because we don't have continuous, so we don't need auxiliary be. It's going to have to be the negative form. They ask for the negative here. So I'm going to use do to make the negative form. They didn't reject anybody's ideas last night, meaning they accepted everybody's ideas last night. And we have this anybody's as a clue too. When you see anybody, you know that's probably going to be a negative form. Auxiliary do, often used for the negative. He will be heading home at that time. Remember, if we have modal, like will, do not change the auxiliary form. No am, no is, no are. It's just going to be normal old be. He will be heading home at that time. And we have a verb ing, so continuous form. They, and then we have a clue here, yet. And I didn't get to this really, but we're going to use haven't. They haven't tied the knot yet. But if we look at this verb tied, here's a clue. If we look at this verb tied, tied, it's actually a verb 3. Use have for verb 3, and they gave you the clue to use a negative. They haven't tied the knot yet. Did, remember auxiliary do, often used for questions. Did he polish my shoes too this morning? E, has she been here all day? We have been, and then we have she, so we're going to use the has form of have. Has she been here all day? And finally, they haven't been contributing at all. Here I have the been, so present perfect continuous, been contributing. They haven't been contributing at all. So didn't, be, haven't, did, has, haven't. Hopefully, even though we went through auxiliaries, hopefully you learned a little bit. We flew through it. We might return to it since we went so fast, but it'll be a new topic next Monday. I don't know if I'll be here next Monday. It's a vacation for us, but if I get called in, I'll be here for sure. And thanks for joining us. Thank you, everybody. You were awesome. It was fun. It was fun reading your chats. Great questions. And I love it when you get me off on tangents talking about something else. I will try to answer all questions, as many questions as I can. It's been a lot of fun, as usual. And I'll see you next time. Tune in. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. You're welcome, and thank you. Thank you for being here. Actually, I should go back to the red screen to say bye-bye, full screen. All right, bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Talk to you next time.